gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's April 19th, 2022. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined as always by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day, presented as always by LifeWallet, where the time is now to take charge of your personal health. And Matt, it's kind of the calm after the storm for us right now. It's, spring practice ended. We're catching up with recruits. We're looking ahead. But obviously there are going to be, stories and things to discuss on an ongoing basis. And I thought we would start today with a little conversation related to Cyrus Moss and the defensive line in general. And, it's funny. I'm watching the spring game the other day and, you look at Cyrus Moss and he's like literally like a string bean. I mean, he is so skinny and, the whole team in general, looks kind of small. I mean, as we've talked about, they've done a lot of really intense training under Aaron Feld, and they're in good condition, but they look very lean. Like it's not a big looking football team in most cases. But Cyrus Moss is really thin. I mean, he should still be in high school. Should be getting ready to go to the prom. That's like a cliche that everybody uses at this time of year for the kids that come to college early. But in this case, it's really applicable. And he looks like a high school football player. But then the plays start as they did in the spring game the other day. And Cyrus Moss just pops out, man. It's like it's his motor, the effort that he puts into every single play, the way he chases the quarterbacks. You could see that this is a kid that's going to be a good player for Miami. The question I have for you, Matt, is should they redshirt him this year and do him a favor and let him develop physically as opposed to throwing him into the fray and, let a couple of these transfers that are older kids that have played college football carry the load along with like a Jafari Harvey, a Chance Williams, and give Cyrus Moss time to develop properly so that maybe a year from now, when you're ready to use him full time, he can really deliver.
I mean, my perception is that redshirting is not what it used to be. You used to redshirt your best freshmen and you'd play the ones you didn't think were that good to get them off your roster within 4 years instead of having them around for an extra year. But now with the transfer portal, with modern day recruiting, there's just no point to redshirting anybody who would even be in somewhat of a backup role. If you think a guy might get hurt and he's, even if he's the 5th best defensive man on your roster this year, which he might be after the transfers come in, or even 6th best, you just don't know what's going to happen by the end of the year. They're trying to compete. They're trying to be good. You got to get a guy like this ready. And he reminds me a lot of a young Gregory Rousseau in the sense that, he played safety at one point in high school. He played linebacker at one point in high school. And then he's a defensive end. That's a sign just that he's gaining a lot of weight, getting a lot stronger, but he has that athleticism. And there's no one else on Miami's roster that's quite like this, even with the transfers coming in, with this sort of length rushing off the edge. And he has, believe it or not, a decent first step. Usually these long, lanky guys, they have a little trouble, getting off the ball, but he does not. And so I would not redshirt him. There's no need to. You redshirt him. Why? Either he's a starter and he's amazing in 2 years as a redshirt sophomore or as a true junior. And if he's amazing, he's going to the NFL after that anyway, or he comes back for a senior year and then goes to the NFL. Or he thinks he's amazing and he's a backup and he's transferring somewhere else. Like, what's the upside to redshirting him? There is none. It's good for the kid, not good for the program. And in this current day and age, you do what's best for the program. I mean, that's the bottom line, Like, would it benefit him to redshirt? Probably, but there's no need. It helps the program to have him play.
On this one, I disagree with you, Matt. I guess we've disagreed before.
Shocker. Whatever I said, you were disagree. I could have said, yeah, he should redshirt. I disagree.
In this case, I'm going to say it's good for the kid and for the program, just like it would have been for Ja'Kai Clark. And like Cyrus Moss is not even close to having an NFL body right now. And if he has an NFL body in 3 years, God bless him. It worked for Gregory Rousseau. He went out in 3 years. But what if he doesn't have an NFL body in 3 years? What if he gets hurt? And what if he needs that extra year?
Oh, let me stop you for a minute, because otherwise I'll never get a word in. I won't even remember what I was trying to say. How is it good for him if you think he's not ready? Because what's good for him if he's not ready is to not be planning game day stuff, but to be with that redshirt group that's in the weight room gaining weight and muscle mass the entire season. So how's that good for him, in your opinion?
That's what I want to see him do. I mean,
then it's not good for him to. Then it would be good for him to redshirt, not to.
I would rather see them, go through the season with Mitchell Agood, with Jafari Harvey, with Chance Williams, to a lesser extent Thomas Davis, who's a year ahead of Moss.
Okay, so you want him to redshirt. You weren't clear on that.
I want him in the weight room this year.
You want him to redshirt. You didn't make that clear.
Working on developing his body. For the couple sacks that he might get you in garbage time of meaningful games, I would want to see him developing his body. I think that Cyrus Moss can be a great football player, just like Gregory Rousseau evolved into a great football player. But he wasn't a great football player his first year. He was just okay, and that's what I think Cyrus Moss would be this year, just okay. And I think that a year or two down the road he can be great. And so if it's me charting his path, I have him redshirt this year. I have him living in the weight room with Aaron Feld, not worrying about playing in games, just building your body, eating, drinking 1 million milkshakes a day, doing whatever you got to do to gain, 30 pounds of muscle mass, or, something along those lines, maybe even 40. And I'm not sure what he weighs right now. I think he says like 210 or something, but I'm telling you, he looks really thin. And you've got a Jason Taylor that can work with him and guide him. And I'm telling you, this kid can be a beast a couple years down the road. But if you play him,
let me ask you a question. What right now in the spring roster, including Mitchell Agood, who wasn't here but will be there, how would you rank him number defensive end wise? Just pure talent, able to make a play. How would you rank him? You got Jafari Harvey probably ahead of him, right?
I think number 5.
No.
Who's assuming Messidor. Wait, let's assume Messidor is going to come for right now.
Okay.
For the sake of this argument.
Okay.
Let's assume he's going to come. So that you got
I'd put him at a 4/5 in that situation. I think he's better than Thomas Davis.
Yeah, he's probably better than Thomas Davis.
So let's say he's probably your 4th best end, maybe 5th best end.
Maybe he's better than Chance. Maybe he's not. I don't. We'd have to do a much heavier, deeper evaluation and look at a lot of tape to give an opinion on that. But
so you're all about win now. You're like win now. But redshirt the guy who's your 4th best defensive end, maybe.
How many reps a game is this? What's he going to get, Matt? 5 reps a game? I mean, this kid's Cyrus Moss is not going to be the difference between winning and losing this year against anybody. So, what I would say is let him develop physically, do the kid a favor. When he comes to compete, let him be physically equipped. Don't put him out there to get his butt kicked against anybody that's any good at offensive tackle, because they will kick his butt. They'll touch him and he's going to blow back, go backwards. I mean, he's just not, he doesn't have the mass yet. So I hope they do that. That's just me personally. I hope that they redshirt him. I hope they give him time to develop. I think he can be great, but not for a year or two down the road. And then if he's NFL great after 3 years, like Gregory Rousseau was, you applaud. Awesome. And it's a great developmental story for your program. And then if he's not ready for the NFL after year 3, you get him for year 4. If he gets hurt in year 4 or something, you've got that extra year in the bank. He can come back for year 5. They would be managing Cyrus Moss's career in a very positive way, in my opinion, if they redshirt him. So, we'll see what happens.
Okie dokie. I already said my piece. To me, redshirting is the thing of the past, man. You're here. The great players aren't here 5 years. Okay, you're lucky if you get 4 years out of the great players. So may as well use him year 1 if he's your 3rd or 4th or 5th best defensive end. That's just me. I guess I'm a crazy person.
Matt, they had players last year who were there for their 6th year.
Yeah. And how great were they, Gary? Were they amazing?
You just don't know. You don't know how a career is going to go.
Who were your amazing defensive players that were 6-year players last year? I'm just curious.
Right.
There weren't a lot.
My mind's drawing a blank for a second here, but Zach McLeod.
Yeah, Zach McLeod. Why was he here for 6 years, Gary? Why?
Well, his career didn't go great, but
he changed positions because he was going to be a backup. He redshirted because he was going to be a backup. I mean, this is what happens. This is not Cyrus Moss's trajectory. If he's going to be,
but let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Zach McCloud is a freshman football player recruited to Miami. He started as a true freshman, right?
Yep.
If you're commenting on Zach McCloud and you're telling the truth right now, when he's a true freshman starter and he played decently, you're saying this kid will be here for 3 years and he's gone, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It didn't play out that way.
Because Zach McCloud wasn't that good, and he got hurt. But
I understand.
But
when you're starting as a true freshman,
oh my Lord, can I talk? Cyrus Moss and Thomas Davis.
When you're starting as a true freshman, you're thinking he's going to be good enough.
Here's the thing: you're trying to redshirt a kid who was one of your 2 best defensive ends all spring. I'm not ready to say that yet. If he goes into fall camp and he's the 6th best defensive end, okay, I guess. But once you redshirt a kid, once you say we are redshirting you, like that's it for your season. You are in the weight room. You are no longer part of the game plan. You're on the scout team. You're just doing some drills, man. Like you're done. If he's on the active roster where they expect to use him, it's a whole different ball game. It's a whole different set of things he will be doing. And I think based on what we saw this spring, I just don't see how they could put him on the shelf before game 1 of the season and say, you're just going to be weight room all fall and you'll help on scout team. I just don't see it. But, in the old days, I could see it maybe, but not now.
No, I hope they do.
There's no reason to do it.
It's going to be very interesting. This is obviously a great coaching staff, and it'll be very interesting to see what they come up with in terms of Cyrus Moss. Because to my eye, he's not ready yet. And now let's take a moment to hear from our friends at Life Wallet.
I will be your shield in the fiercest battle. I'll defend you.
Yeah.
Hey, my name is Cleveland Reed, and I play offensive line, and my job is to protect. I protect my family with Life Wallet. How about you?
Of course, I got Life Wallet. It's the best way to protect my family.
Long as we go together, we'll die whenever. Be a light, couldn't let the darkness try you ever. Truth in my word, you I lie to never.
To protect you and your family, get Life Wallet now.
Life Wallet. Saving time, saving lives.
All right, so let's shift gears. Let's talk about a recruit that visited this past weekend that I thought that I was very impressed with, and that's a kid by the name of Jackson Carver. He's a tight end, and Matt, when you turn on this guy's game tape, his athleticism just like screams at you. Like, I mean, the kid can flat play ball. In fact, I'm not convinced that he will even be a tight end at the college level because he's already so big. I can see this kid growing into even a defensive tackle, quite honestly. I mean, he's a real impressive, big, athletic kid. Your thoughts on Jackson Carver?
That's interesting you say that. I hadn't really thought about that. But he does have a defensive mentality. This is a lacrosse player, grew up playing hockey. He just loves hitting people. So, yeah, man, I could see that. He's a really interesting recruit. He just started playing football really a year ago when he stopped playing hockey because hockey was a fall sport in Minnesota where he grew up. Then he went to a prep school where he was able to play football, and he realized, hey, I got a different career path. He was at one point committed to Notre Dame for lacrosse. That's how good an athlete he is. You love having these kids who are multi-sport athletes. And for those of you out there that have children or no children, high school kids, I guess, that are playing sports, nowadays, a lot of these high school student athletes will only play one sport. And it's almost a year-round sport, whether it's baseball or football or basketball. It's travel ball in the off season. It's, weight room specific training for that sport. And then you play your season, and that's it. And I think it's so important and so rare almost nowadays to have these multi-sport athletes because you work different muscle groups, you work different coordination aspects to your game, depending what sport it is. Hockey is about balance. Lacrosse is about toughness, and I can't even use a lacrosse stick, so I don't know what you'd call that, that skill. And then, and I've tried, believe me. And then obviously football is a whole different set of skills. So somebody like this has really unlimited upside to me. Just started playing, has excelled in 2 opposite sports. and now just sort of just learning the game. And he really enjoys Miami. He really likes Miami a lot. He's super interested. I think he could be an amazing player at multiple positions at the next level. So, yeah, I'd encourage everyone to read that story this morning.
Yeah, one of the definite good-looking prospects that the Canes are looking at. And then we also have a story on the website this morning on Anthony James II. He and his father made a 2-day trip to Miami. He's currently a Texas A&M commitment, but he was impressed, and he said he's going to be back for an official visit. So a lot for people to absorb in the case of Anthony James II.
Yeah, and I did these 2 stories for you, Gary, because I wanted to have 2 players with names that you could pronounce with no problem. So we got Jackson Carver and Anthony James. I'm proud of you. You didn't mispronounce anything today. As far as Anthony James, I talked to him. I talked to his dad after the visit. And, I think Anthony II is a little more reserved. The dad was very excited about Miami. The dad certainly thinks Miami's very, very much in this. But at the end of the day, he said it's Anthony II's decision. And right now he's still with Texas A&M. So Miami's going to get him on an official. He'll take an official to Texas A&M. And I think he wants to sort of shut things down before his season. So we should have a pretty good idea by mid-June of what's going to happen here. But the real story here is Miami's in it. Everybody we talk to, every story, we've done probably stories with 60 recruits just in the last month. And they're all top recruits. These aren't your 2-star, 3-star, you don't see diamond in the rough anymore. Remember the old headlines we'd have, Gary, be like, Canes land diamond in the rough offensive lineman. Miami finds gem 0-star defensive tackle in the middle of nowhere. Whatever, I'm making that up. But, that's sort of the recruits that we're getting this time of year. And Mario and his staff aren't settling for these guys who just want to be Hurricanes, who want to be here, but aren't that national level, those guys who have 40 offers from everywhere in the world. And these 2 kids today, they have those sorts of offer lists. The 60 kids, if you go back to the last 30 days in our archives and you look at it, they're 4-star, 5 stars. These are players with offers from everywhere, even if they're 3 stars, right? They have offers from everywhere. Like, even though Jackson Carver's a 3-star, look at his offer list. Look at how little film he has. And that tells you everything you need to know about his freakish ability. So while Miami doesn't have a lot of commitments, and I think Rivals had some story yesterday about, how what's going on in Miami. Why don't they have, where's the big splash? The big splash is coming, man. Right? Mario Cristobal.
Yeah. I mean,
Mario Cristobal jumped off the high board. Time stopped for a little while he's sort of gathering himself and getting ready for the 10.0 dive. And at the end of the day, we'll find out for the most part by the end of July where we're at, because a lot of these kids are announcing that Miami's targeting, but they're in the picture with, if you look at the Rivals 250, they're in the picture with like everybody they want to be in the picture with. And there's 100 out of 250. I mean, we used to do, here's the Miami targets in the Rivals 250, right? And we'd break down each one. We'd have to have a story on 100 kids. It's like impossible to even write the story. It would take a month to write the story. By then it would have changed. They'd add another 50 kids by then. I mean, it's unbelievable. I've never seen the breadth of talent that they are constantly on. And every kid I call, oh yeah, I'm talking to the whole staff. I can't tell you how many recruits tell me that. Almost all of them. How, which coach is recruiting you to Miami? They all are. How often are you talking to the coaches? Every day I hear from a different coach at Miami. These are things we haven't heard even in 2001 recruiting. Like, this is off the chain, and we'll see how it plays out. I mean, because nowadays, as you know, Gary, it's not anymore about who's showing you the most love. It's about NIL deals. It's about, am I starting as a freshman? It's about a lot of different factors than it used to be. But, Miami's killing it as far as getting those relationships going, getting guys on campus, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, it's been a whirlwind for these coaches. I mean, think about it. They get hired. They have to finish recruiting for this year. Then they have to jump into recruiting for next year. In the meantime, they got to get to know their kids. They're having off-season workouts. They have to have spring practice. There's no reason why there should have been a flurry of commits to this point. Now they're done with spring practice. They are getting ready to focus 100% on recruiting for the next, month and a half. And things are going to start happening, I'm pretty sure, during that time period. But in the case of Anthony James, he's, let's be honest, Texas A&M has a built-in edge. He's from Texas, Wiley, Texas. He committed to the Aggies on February the 1st, actually. But he is showing interest in Miami. Miami's probably the only other school he's going to visit other than Texas A&M. and we'll see what happens. You know, he's a good-looking kid. He's 6'5", 228 pounds, strong side defensive end, a 4-star kid. These are the kind of athletes that this coaching staff is recruiting, and it's a higher grade than what we've seen in recent years. And you know, if it takes them a little longer to figure out who they really want, to get commitments, it's all okay. Look how it worked out when everybody was panicking that Mario was taking too long to hire coaches. And I think everybody would agree that that situation worked itself out pretty well.
Oh yeah. And you know, these recruits, I mean, they're sensing the excitement around the program. You know, I talked to like Lamar Seymour the other day, you know, just in passing, but you know, he says just these national guys, you know, he's always been around Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State guys, just in his travel teams and 7-on-7 stuff. And, you know, he says they've always said to him how, you know, they're going to beat Miami easily when they play them and you know, and Lamar's never really had a comeback for that. But he says now it's changing. He's sensing that some of these guys who are going elsewhere are like, you know, not so like down on Miami, like, oh, you're terrible or whatever, you know? No, like people around the country are starting to recognize this Miami program's on the up and up. And the funny thing with Lamar also, so I asked him, I said, hey, Lamar, you know, I know your brother's on the team. I'm just curious, not including your brother, who's your breakout offensive player for next year? Who do you think is going to be, you know, amazing that fans, you know, or that people haven't maybe seen yet? And he says, oh yeah, he says, that's easy. He says, Jacoby George. He says, Jacoby George, he's going to be crazy this year. That's what he says. He's going to be crazy this year. So I said, oh, okay. I said, you know, just how many yards do you think Jacoby George gets this year? I said, 12 games, 13 games. How many yards? He says, 500. I said, 500 yards? Okay. I said, just so you know, like 800 to 1,000 yards. That's a good season, right? I said, I just want to make sure. 500 yards? He goes, yeah, 500 yards.
Unfortunately, he might end up being accurate.
Well, I hope. Listen,
Jacoby George didn't exactly bust out in the spring like a lot of people hoped he would.
I mean, maybe he's assuming Lamar only plays the last 5. I mean, he assumes Jacoby's only playing the last 5 games. I don't know, but I think I'm going to take the over on the 500 yards.
All right, well, that's going to do it for today for Good Morning CaneSport. For Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. We thank you for joining us once again. Hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time, everybody.